Hi, I'm Robin Allenson. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Similar.ai. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can classify topics for new pages where you might want to create new content, new pages for a site, and you want to classify those by the categories that the site already has. So we've talked quite a bit about how to create topics from keywords and how you might go about classifying those keywords. But most sites already have an existing information architecture, and it's useful to talk a bit about how you might take that and apply it to those new topics. So this is the site I'm looking at. We can have a look at here. They've got their services overview. It's actually quite detailed. It's quite complex. So we've got a couple of what we call L1 categories, so organizations and individuals, and underneath that we have some L2 categories, we call it, so things like commercial law or for individuals. These kind of more detailed, these kind of family law things, as an example, which doesn't appear for organizations. And there's actually kind of, if we look at the two, there's some overlap between the two. So you could have commercial law that appears both for organizations and for individuals. So we might think about how we could create label groups. So again, label groups are the similar AI way of representing categories or groups of categories. How we might create label groups for this kind of taxonomy or this kind of information architecture. So sometimes when this is your site or you're working with a customer, you can get an export of this in some way, maybe a CSV or a JSON file. You can upload that into Similar AI, but it's very common not to have that, especially when your site maybe has 10, 20, 30 different categories. Then they're on the site, and that's the most up-to-date version of what your categories are or what your taxonomy is. So in those cases, we can just manually add those as label groups. So manually add label groups to Similar AI. So we don't use AI to generate the label groups, and we don't upload those as a file, but we can just manually add the categories or the labels into a group one by one. We can also think about how we might use label groups to kind of structure some of the new topics. So we'll go and have a look at the topics we've got from competitive keywords, and grouping those competitive keywords into topics using SERP data. If we can just go and look at the topics, we can browse through some of these. So some of these have quite a few topic keywords. Some of them look pretty useful for a legal firm, like UK passport, or I don't know, life in the UK test, will seems pretty good. Child maintenance calculator, whiplash, power of attorney. These all seem pretty good, but there are lots and lots of things coming from the competitors, like Archie Battersby, doesn't seem very relevant. Coronation date, International Women's Day, England rugby. None of these seem very relevant for new page creation. So when we're thinking through these topics, it's useful to think about maybe at a high level, some overarching category is maybe related to legal work. So things that this company could do. Maybe there will also be things about law or lawyers or solicitors, attorneys, different dialects, but maybe there's a class about kind of the people and the kind of work they do, even though it's not specifically related to actually doing some work. But then there's also probably something that has nothing to do with law or legal work or lawyers or anything that seems relevant. And so we can build this overarching label group. We sometimes call this an L0 label group, so not L1 or L2, but L0. We also sometimes call it a relevance classifier. And what's very powerful now is we can use AI label groups to do that. So just within here within the index, we can just head on over to the taxonomy, and we can make a new, so maybe call this L0. So we can add this as a new label group, and then when we refresh, then this will be added in, and then we can start to add in. It can take a few seconds to appear, so don't worry about that. So over here we can start to add in additional categories within, or labels within the label group. So additional categories, and so maybe the first one is nothing to do with law, lawyers. I'll just add this in, spell it, or legal work. And maybe also law, lawyers, but not legal work. So we've got these two here. These can be quite long names. When you go in and edit those, you can give a much longer description if you want. So you could keep the name brief but make the description much longer. And then the AI classifier will also use the much longer description to understand exactly what you mean. So we can add another label here. So maybe legal work for individuals. And legal work for companies. Yeah, or organizations, we can call it as well. And again, the exact naming, I don't have to worry too much about that here, but when I go and edit it here, I can provide much more detail in the description. So this seems like a good kind of overarching taxonomy. Maybe it's useful to include none of the above or not applicable. That might work with nothing to do with law, lawyers, solicitors, or legal work, but maybe there's some other thing that I haven't thought of. So that's generally a useful thing to do. So actually, I made this kind of classifier already. Here I did law or lawyer related, but not legal work, and then nothing to do with the law, lawyers, or legal work. I did legal work for individuals, and then for companies, and then also generally. So sometimes it's hard to tell from the topic whether this is, if we go back to here, whether this is corporate law for organizations or corporate law for individuals, or whether this is commercial law for organizations or commercial law for individuals. So we can give the classifier kind of free rein to say this is legal work generally, which we can then classify deeper after that. And then I've taken these, this organizational law and this individual law, and I've done separate label groups for each of those. Here for individuals, and then for organizations, and then also for general, which is just the kind of union of those two. And then I can take the topics that we have, and I can go through and run a label classifier for, say, legal work is my L0 classifier. I can run the L0 classifier for all these topics, and it will very quickly let me see which topics are not relevant at all, which topics are to do with individuals or to do with companies or generally. And so I can start to think about how I can generate new pages around those. I can then also, so I think we've got some things here already. So we've got legal work for individuals as an example. Then I could also run the individual label group, which has all of those different things. I've actually already done it here, so it's got things like UK private wealth or disputed wills, trusts and estates, or family law, and it's run on all of these topics. So I've got this kind of L0 level, but also this deeper level here for the L1 and the L2. And so here we've classified all of these topics using basically the same categories that are in the information architecture for the site. I might also see, there's a bunch of topics which aren't being classified very well. I could go back and update the label group and add a new classification in. So for instance, UK private wealth for UK passport. I don't know, is that right or is that wrong? So maybe I'd have to have a chat with the customer. But it actually looks like we can go and have a look here. We can just add in individuals is private wealth. And then, so a lot of these do seem to be cost of getting a UK passport or British citizenship or applying for settled status. So maybe that's not related to UK private wealth, and that we should split that out into a different category. So we can go back and add a label to the individuals label group just for passports and visas perhaps, and then kind of explain what the differences are and why that does and doesn't apply to UK private wealth if we need to in the description. And then we can rerun the label classifier and very quickly we'll be able to split that out. So that's useful if we want to iterate on the information architecture. And so we're kind of building out these nice hubs and spokes. The site already has them, but here we have lots of potential. So for the passport and the visa work and the other things for UK private health, we have 170 potential new pages that we could be writing about. along with all of the additional detail that we've covered in other videos, such as the value potential for those. Yeah, so this was a quick introduction into how you can classify new topic research that you're doing by the existing information architecture, existing categories of the site you're working for. If you have any questions, always very happy to hear them. If you have any actual examples of how you've tried to apply this, where you have some questions, reach out. We're always happy to help, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye.